This is LA Business Spotlight.
Greed is good.
Always be closing.
It's strictly business.
Welcome to LA Business Spotlight. Today we're going to talk about social media, which is becoming increasingly important to businesses both large and small. And today my guest is Leighton Webb. He's a digital media executive. He's worked for companies like 20th Century Fox, the Oprah Winfrey Network, and AOL. And currently he's working with an LA-based social media company called Zen. He splits his time between New York and Los Angeles, and right now he's joining us from New York. Leighton, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Joel.
So why is social media so important for businesses?
I think a few different reasons. First is it's the only medium where businesses can actually interact with their consumers on a one-on-one basis. If you look at traditional media such as newspaper or television, that's really much more of a mass market platform, where social media is the first platform where businesses can have a dialogue, an active dialogue with their consumers. So that's kind of the first point. Second is people are spending more and more time on social media and less time on traditional forms of media. So it's where the eyeballs are, so to speak. So it's important that businesses embrace the broad social media platform, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so forth, and really reach out and establish their presence, establish their brand, and have that dialogue with their consumer.
How would it be different for a large business versus a small business? Because I see a lot of small businesses really getting on the bandwagon because it's a very cost-effective way of them to reach their clients.
Exactly. It's for a small business to be able to establish their presence in social media is much more cost-effective, where they may not have the resource, for example, to go out and, let's say, take a television commercial or a full-page ad in a particular magazine or newspaper, kind of the way it was done traditionally. And so, but the principles are really the same, which is the key thing around social media is it's very participatory. So there needs to be an ongoing dialogue between the company, the brand, whether that's a large company or a small company, and the consumer. So it's not a kind of shoot once, forget about it, like an ad is, and it's out there, and you hope people see it, and they respond to the brand. It's much more an interactive platform, channel of communication with your consumer. But I always look at the principles of between large and small businesses as really the same in terms of when you get down to how that's managed, how you're setting up your Twitter feed or your Facebook page. A lot of the tactics are very similar between whether you're a large company or a small company. Probably the main difference, just one thing I'll add, is for a large company, it's a great way to also listen to what's happening in the marketplace. So as an example, let's say people are complaining about a particular brand or something that a brand did, and they take to social media and start complaining. It's a great way for companies, larger companies in particular, to really manage their damage control and get in front of issues before they become larger issues. How
important is a long-term strategy versus a short-term strategy? I know a lot of things you read say you should be posting every day. Just keep posting, keep putting it out there. What's the difference between long-term and short-term with social media?
That's a great question. There really aren't that many differences. I mean, social media is such an immediate platform, as you've pointed out, meaning you have to be engaged, you have to be posting, interacting with your consumers literally on a daily basis. But that being said, there definitely needs to be a strategy, and that's probably where it goes into the long-term strategy. So really being very clear around, what are you trying to achieve in social media channels? Is it establishing your brand, building awareness, driving traffic to your website, getting people to attend an event? So very different depending on the company, but it very much is a hands-on, tactical type of channel where you need to be involved literally on a daily basis. And each channel is slightly different, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But so it is a very tactical type of channel, but there does need to be probably not a long-term strategy, but I would probably phrase it as, clear objectives. What are you trying to achieve? How is that being measured? What are watching the analytics and really making sure that what's being done and the time that's being invested in social media is working. And I think that's where social media is similar to a lot of other types of marketing and PR channels. You always want to set out kind of business 101. What are you trying to achieve, and how are you measuring that, and are you seeing results?
Well, let's talk about the different channels. You have Facebook, you have Twitter, LinkedIn. How important is it to be on multiple channels all the time? And how important is it to focus on the platform that is best for your business? For example, LinkedIn is very different from something like Pinterest, right? So how important is it to be on all the channels?
I think it's very important to be on all platforms, at least the major ones that you mentioned, for a couple of different reasons. First is people use each of those platforms in a different way. So LinkedIn is, as we all know, a professional network. It's my professional network, where Twitter could be my source for information, for news, where Facebook might be my network of friends and family that I'm posting to in a very different way. So I think it's important to cover each of those because people are using them in different ways. Second is there's a very small cost for the business to cover multiple platforms. So, for example, if I'm posting something on Twitter, it's very easy and actually seamless for me to put that information on LinkedIn as well. Now, the trick comes in is that each of those platforms is very different. So Twitter is obviously limited in terms of what I can say in a particular tweet. Facebook is a very visual platform. Pinterest, of course, is very visual, and so forth. So you really need to think about what the platform is, and then how you're crafting that message for that platform. Because what you don't want to do is, as an example, take a Twitter post and put that on Facebook with no supporting visual documentation or material. It's just less effective. People click less on posts that don't have images on them on Facebook, as an example. So I would highly recommend being on all of the platforms, or at least the major platforms that you mentioned, for the reasons that I just outlined.
So let's talk about some of the common mistakes that businesses make with social media.
I think the first is what I just alluded to, which is making the assumption that every channel is the same, that one size fits all, and that's definitely not the case. Each platform, people are there for a different reason. They're expecting a different type of experience. So I think that's first. The second is underestimating the interactivity that needs to happen between the business and the consumer. So again, this is a bi-directional channel. It's a dialogue. It's a discussion that businesses need to engage in. They need to listen to what people are saying in these channels, respond to what they're hearing, and continue to have that dialogue on an ongoing basis. So companies that are really coming at it from a linear media perspective, and there aren't that many. It's mostly small businesses that make this mistake. The larger businesses obviously do social media very well for the most part. But the second piece is underestimating the fact that this is it's a bi-directional communication channel. It's not a linear communication channel, and so by that, it's kind of a fancy way of saying it's a very hands-on platform. You've got to be doing it every day, every hour, someone committed to it on a regular basis to make it effective.
Well, we're going to take a break now. We're here talking to Leighton Webb, a digital media executive, about social media.
LA Business Spotlight is brought to you by Icebox Logic, makers of fine handcrafted audio and video. Go to iceboxlogic.net to see examples. Your company needs to communicate.
We are back with LA Business Spotlight. We're talking to Leighton Webb, digital media executive, about social media. Leighton, do you think any of the big players could go belly up the way MySpace did, or are they just too entrenched now?
Sure, I think anything's possible in this business, and looking at, example, MySpace, that's a great example, and everyone thought that they would be here for the foreseeable future. They still are, but clearly a distant second to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter and other platforms. So I think in this business, absolutely anything is possible in terms of which companies will be dominant 2, 3, 5 years from now.
Well, what about Google+? I read really good things about it. It gets great reviews as a platform, but it doesn't seem to be getting the traction that it should. Do you think it's ever going to be a serious rival to these other bigger platforms?
I think it could be, and obviously Google has the resources to continue investing in the platform and to market the platform, and also the integration with other services that they have obviously will help it and continue to grow Google+. the big challenge that I see is many people argue and reading in the press that social media in certain aspects is a zero-sum game. And what I mean by that is, in the case of Google+, there's a lot of similarity between that platform and Facebook. And so there's a challenge in getting the user to either complement or switch from Facebook to Google+. It's duplicative in some respects. And so when I go to Google+, none of my friends are there, or many of my friends are there. They're on Facebook. A lot of the same features that are on Google+ are also on Facebook. So there's this notion and this argument that social media, especially platforms that are very similar, is a zero-sum game, where something like Pinterest is such a different experience. It's such a different platform that it's very complementary to something like Facebook, which is part of the reason that you're seeing the numbers that we're seeing in Pinterest.
Well, do you think in the future there's room for an additional platform? For example, Pinterest kind of came out of nowhere and blew up really big. Do you think there's room at the table for a new player?
Absolutely, because it's not so much an additional platform, it's the fact that the medium is still evolving. So what social media will look like in 2, 3, 5 years from now will probably be very different than our experience today. So in this business, in the technology business, there are always newcomers that are coming up with new, innovative ways to make that experience, to make social media different and engaging and more useful and integrated into our lives. So absolutely, I think there's room, but I think about it in terms of not room at the table the way that social media looks today. It's really doing something better, different than what's being done today. So I think absolutely we'll see companies that we don't even know the name of today that will be dominant in this space in the short term.
Well, Leighton, I want to thank you for all this information. This has really been great stuff. What are you working on now, and how can people reach you?
So right now I'm working with an LA-based company called Zen.com, and we're building a interest-based social media platform that we just launched in early August, and would love people to check it out. And if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call. The website for Zen is www.zen.com, and that's with an X, XEN.com. And I can always be reached at 310-498-9990.
Leighton, thank you very much for being here. We've been talking to Leighton Webb. He's a digital media executive, and this is LA Business Spotlight.
You've been listening to LA Business Spotlight. If you have a company or service and you'd like to appear on the show, send an email to info@iceboxlogic.net.
This podcast was recorded at the studios of Icebox Logic.